Welcome to Animal X. I've sent Daniel and Natalie to meet a couple of abductees. But how much validity is there in these accounts of alien abduction?
So the experience is real. The explanation, I believe, is incorrect.
The professor's theory may poke some holes in the alien abduction phenomena. But according to Mary Rodwell, an alien abductee counselor, there's only one explanation.
Can you tell us about some of the experience people have had with reptilian beings?
It's quite interesting that there's an enormous number that do have encounters with what they believe are dinosaur, lizard-like reptilian beings, and it's again a global thing. Some of them are really scary because they seem to be very huge.
So can you describe these reptilian creatures that people are seeing?
Well, many of them seem to be about 6 or 7 feet tall, maybe even slightly bigger. Huge frame, snake-like eyes, big snake-like eyes, very overpowering kind of presence, a really sort of strong energy. Many of them, I say, feel really fearful of them. They may be a grey, green, or they describe sometimes different colours. But it seems to be the eyes that seem to be the most fearful part of these beings as well. Sort of the big sort of snout here. Some of them have something that seems like a crown or skull scales that go down the back, which you know, some see those, some just see them as a flat back. Very much like one would expect a dinosaur that's evolved into a sentient, conscious creature may very well have evolved into.
Is there a typical encounter that people have with these reptilian creatures?
Typical in the sense that it goes with all contact experiences, that they may very well feel, wake up in bed not being unable to move, for example. They'll have a sense of a presence, an overwhelming presence of someone being in the room. And then for others it may be that they end up being on a craft and will see these creatures. They will have a deep understanding of the being that they've seen. They can describe how it felt to them. They would describe different shades of colour or how their eyes looked or the feeling that they got from that being. Hugely detailed, which for me gives it even more credibility as a real experience.
I guess that must be quite unnerving for a lot of these people. How do you help them deal with it?
It's absolutely terrifying for some of them, and they're left with post-traumatic stress disorder because of it. And that's why we know it is a reality, because you don't get those kinds of symptoms from someone who's having a fantasy or, you know, a hallucination. You would not be left with trauma that may last anything from 10, 20 or 30 years. I think the fact that it's a reptilian scares them because it's not what they would expect. And what's interesting for me is that often the people that have see these other beings as well, it isn't something that they would normally want to try and imagine. You know, they're not sci-fi fanatics. They're not people that read, you know, that kind of fiction. They would say, look, I don't believe in this stuff, but I am seeing in front of me one of these beings, you know, and I've seen them come into my room. Interestingly, many of them initially are fearful because they don't know what they're experiencing, not necessarily because of what's happened. So that to isolate the fear, is it them or is it me? Fearful because I don't know what's going on. When they actually get to understand it, many of them actually change how they view the experience, and many say they feel a love coming from the beings and a sense of almost kinship with some of them. Some of them will say, look, you know, I feel they're more like family than my human family almost. Sometimes there is a sexual encounter with them as well, which we don't always understand. So there's a lot of fear generated with them as well. And I actually talked to a therapist in America that works in this field, and she told me about her own experience where she walked into the lounge room and standing directly in front of her was this huge reptilian being. But for her it wasn't a scary thing. She felt great love emanating from this reptilian being, and she found herself being drawn to it and actually embracing this being before it literally just disappeared. But it seems to be very real and very tangible for some people when they're feeling a sexual response and this heavy weight on their bodies sometimes. But many also see them on the craft doing various tasks, along with, you know, the greys or humanoids as well.
Ooh, freaky stuff. But it's about to get even freakier. The Mexican Air Force has released controversial footage of what is believed to be alien spacecraft. I've sent Natalie to Thermont, Maryland to meet with Dr. Bruce Maccabee, a doctor of physics. He's looked at the Mexican Air Force footage and believes that they've caught UFOs on tape. Listen to this.
Well, they were flying over the Yucatan Peninsula area looking for illegal small aircraft, drug runners that overfly going from Colombia to Mexico.